Good evening, everyone present here. I am Faraz from IJCP Group. Welcome all the participants on today's webinar. That is on a very important topic. As we know that today is a World ORS Day, and ORS play a very vital role in our day-to-day life. And so we will have a discussion on this topic. So I would like to invite our host for this webinar. He don't need any introduction. He is already very much known to in the medical research field. But still, I will introduce and hand over this session to him. He is Dr. Sanjay Kadla, sir, and he has. Let me share some of the achievement of sir. Sir is endocrinologist at Bharti Hospital, Karnal, and he is also a treasurer in International Society of Endocrinology. And I would like to invite sir and hand over this session to sir to invite our guest speaker, Dr. Minakshi. Hi, sir. Welcome to the show. It's great honor to host you, sir. And the
How are
stage is
you?
yours. You can proceed from here.
Thank you, Faraz, and good evening, everyone. Today is the 29th of July, and we are celebrating World ORS Day. Now, ORS means Oral Rehydration Solution. So, we are celebrating World ORS Day. At the same time, the same day, we are celebrating World Tiger Day. Now, what does ORS and Tiger, what do ORS and Tiger have in common with each other? Now, ORS builds tigers. ORS is a very simple solution. So simple, actually, that we might be excused if we ignore its history, if we ignore its future. But then, when we look at the theme for this year's ORS Day, it's ORS, a simple solution for a healthier future. Let's connect tigers with this simple solution, and let's see how this simple solution can ensure that the tigers of our country, the tigers and tigresses of our country, are able to have a healthier future. For this, let's welcome an expert in the field. So, a warm welcome to Dr. Minakshi Verma.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening. And you have rightly said ORS in relation to tigers. And yes, our children are going to be tigers in future if they are treated well. And ORS, I must say, is so underrated at some of the places that it needs reinforcement again and again. And that's why the World ORS Day every year we are conducting and celebrating. So
Thank you.
without
Please,
taking much
but allow us, madam, to introduce you to the audience. Dr.
okay.
Verma is a pediatrician trained at the prestigious PGI Chandigarh, and she now works at Zirakpur near Panchkula in Punjab. And madam is an advocate of holistic health, of natural health in pediatrics. So, ma'am, a question before we begin. Why is it that the general public says, supposing I am a doctor who does surgeries, let us say I do an amputation, that makes me a big doctor. But if I do a dressing, a very humble but very diligent dressing every day, which prevents amputation, then I am considered a lower doctor. This happens in diabetes care. Is it true in pediatrics as well? The doctor who prescribes one, two, three, four, five types of antibiotics is considered better and bigger, while the one who gives a treatment like the humble ORS is considered a bit lower down in the academic hierarchy. Do you encounter this in pediatrics, ma'am?
Yeah, very well. I encounter these type of situations. It's not about the lower or a higher doctor, but it's about the knowledge of people, how they perceive their child's illnesses. Sometimes they think that my child is not well, my child is having loose motions. So they think that the loose motions should stop now and then only. And
Immediately.
if we write just ORS for them, they will think that what will ORS be going to do? He needs IV fluid. एक glucose चढ़ेगा तो 2 मिनट में बच्चा चल पड़ेगा. So that is the basic notion behind this, and that's why we need to create a lot of awareness regarding this simple solution, the ORS solution. And yes, basics come first, and that's what we are taught in our college and in our schools also. That basics come first. Amputation, before amputation we need to do those dressings and proper hygiene maintenance, and that's are all essential things. So basics are essential, and advancements are for the later stages that can be prevented if those basics are taken care of.
So this preventive and promotive message that you are sharing, ma'am, it's now 47 years, nearly half a century, since the WHO started a global campaign on control of diarrheal diseases. And yet, it's 50 years now nearly, and still we are struggling with the basics. So, ma'am, would you like to set things right for us? Would you like to tell us the basics about ORS? And then we invite our audience to share their comments and their opinion. How can we communicate these messages which Madam is sharing with us? How can we communicate them with the community at large so that acceptance of ORS can improve and treatment of diarrheal disease can improve? So, over to you, ma'am.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. So let me have that presentation so that I can communicate in a better way. So ORS, what we are learning is how has this ORS impacted our lives over last few decades. So we are tracing the journey of a life-saving solution. I want to say just one thing that नमक चीनी और पानी का जादू पुरजोर जिंदगी की डोर है ये ओआरएस का घोल and that's true. Lancet also back then in 1978 it was published that it is the most important medical advance of the 20th century. So let's see how was this ORS born. Back then in 1971, when the Bangladesh Liberation War was going on, there were refugees who were traveling to India. And these refugees, when they contract illnesses, diarrheal illnesses like cholera, they were dying of dehydration. And most of them were being given IV fluids and nothing else. So that's when our pioneer in the ORS, Dr. Dilip Mehlanabis, he invented this solution, the ORS, simple water, sugar, and salt combination solution. And he started giving the solution to these refugees. And the result was that the mortality rate was reduced from 30% to just 3%. And how was this invented? Because of the invention, because of the discovery of the sodium glucose co-transport system in our bodies, and taking advantage of this phenomena of sodium glucose co-transport, this ORS was built. So it was not just a drug, it was a physiological breakthrough. And this was that sodium glucose co-transport. Just a quick review of this transport system. What happens is that the sodium and glucose in the intestinal lumen, they are co-transported into the intestinal cells, the enterocytes. And because this sodium is again transported back to the into the intravascular area by the sodium potassium ATPase pump, to equilibrate this osmotic imbalance, the water also is absorbed into the enterocytes and into the intravascular compartment. So sodium and glucose both are needed for the transport, for the transport of water. This whole system is required. So that is the basic phenomena behind this ORS, and this is our pioneer of ORS, Dr. Dilip Mahalenabis, and he is an Indian. He was an Indian. He just passed away in recently in 2022. He is called as the father of ORS, and this invention is now being used in all over the world globally. UNICEF, WHO, all these campaigns, they were started after after this invention. In 1978, this oral rehydration therapy was adopted globally. All the awareness programs and all those ORS solutions, media aware programs, they were created. 1980, it became a part of GOBI campaign. GOBI campaign, the campaign which was launched for children, which was growth monitoring, ORS, breastfeeding and immunization campaign. So was made a global part of a global campaign back then. And by 1990s, 60% of cases of diarrhea were using ORS in all the low and middle income countries. So yes, truly the child deaths due to diarrhea, they fell drastically after the ORS has been started using. India also has helped a lot in this ORS journey. In 1980s, India started the program, the Diarrheal Disease Control Program. And under this program, the ORS was made the cornerstone of this program because of the need for awareness among the local people, the masses. And up to 1990s, mass media campaigns were also launched. the Zindagi Ki Door campaign. So through TVs, radios, televisions, posters, and all those, the ORS awareness was spread like anything. Till 2000s, the community-based action was started. The NRHM, it was established in 2005, and under this program, the ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, they were educated, and then they were made to educate the people also for this regarding this ORS. Then the zinc ORS system was also adopted. The zinc ORS combo kits were adopted. By 2011, the Indians, they institutionalized this ORS awareness. So that's why this ORS Day on July 29 and ORS Week we are celebrating every year. School programs were conducted, social media drives were conducted, and now till present we are digitalizing this integration through mobile reminders to the people, the WhatsApp messages to them. Then it is also being integrated with the Poshan Abhiyan. So this is how the India's ORS journey has been, and our Indian government is helping a lot in spreading this ORS awareness. So, as a part of this drive, the we have achieved various key achievements, like the ORS usage has been increased from 26 to 60%. Mortality rate has been dropped by 80% till 2021, and it must have been more by now. So, India is being seen as a model for this large scale implementation of ORS. What exactly is this? Composition of ORS, if we see nowadays, we are using our new formula WHO ORS, which is the low osmolality ORS. So it contains sodium, potassium, chloride, citrate, glucose in required amounts, and their constitution has been decreased from previous ones because of the problems of hyperosmolarity. So nowadays we use this type of low osmolarity ORS. And where we use it, we use in both in children as well as in adults. For viral diarrhea, cholera, and all those water losses, illnesses, we can also use it post-operative cases. We can use it for elderly care. We are using it in burns cases. So how to use ORS, it depends upon the dehydration level of the patient, of the child. So for assessing the dehydration, we need to assess the child as a whole. If there is no dehydration, we go for treatment plan A. So it doesn't mean that if there is no dehydration, child is having loose motions, we don't have to give ORS. Still, we should give ORS to cover the ongoing losses. And if we find that child is in some dehydration, like he is irritable or lethargic, eyes are sunken, dry oral mucosa, excessively thirsty child, skin pinch, skin turgor is going back very slowly, pulse volume is reduced. So any two of the signs are present, some dehydration is there. We go to plan B. And the severe dehydration, I'll just show that what we have to do if there is severe dehydration. In those cases, do ORS helps or not? We'll see. For plan A, in which there is no dehydration, when there are only less than 5% of losses, home care is planned under plan A, in which we give ORS 50 to 100 ml after each loose motion, and that is called as ongoing losses. Sometimes some doctors they omit feed and milk because of the fear of increasing diarrhea. That should not be done. IAP, WHO, they all recommend we need to continue feeding and breast milk if the child is on it. And we need to teach the caregiver the signs of dehydration for that purpose. Plan B is adopted when we find that the child is in some dehydration, which may range from mild to moderate dehydration, 5 to 10% of losses. That time, child has to be under the care of the health center. ORS is to be given 75 ml per kg over 4 hours, because here our aim is to correct dehydration, not to maintain dehydration. So first of all, we will correct dehydration over 4 hours by giving 75 ml per kg along with the ongoing losses. So 10 ml per kg per episode we need to give. Feeding needs to be continued, and side by side we also should prevent overhydration because that has its own repercussions. For plan C, we cannot give only ORS. We have to first of all correct dehydration, the severe dehydration, by giving IV fluids. Here IV fluids are necessary. We need to assess early and act accordingly. Prevent overhydration in those cases also. And as soon as we see that dehydration has improved, has corrected, we have to shift the child to ORS whenever it is indicated. But there are some cases, some scenarios where ORS therapy fails. And we as doctors, we need to be cautious about these things. If the child is going on vomiting and vomiting, we are giving ORS from mouth and it's vomiting again and again, there is no use of this rehydration. So in protracted vomiting, we need to correct the vomiting, as well as we need to give IV fluid till the vomiting is controlled, and then thereafter we can shift to ORS. If the child is not conscious enough to swallow orally, we need to give IV fluids first and then ORS. The intestines are not working, there is paralytic ileus, or the child is in shock. These are the cases where we have to give IV fluids first before ORS. But there are so many barriers to ORS use, apart from, even if it is so beneficial, but sometimes it's perceived as too simple a medicine. They take it as a medicine which is too simple. That डॉक्टर ने सिर्फ ORS लिखा, ये क्या मेडिसिन हुई, कोई एंटीबायोटिक नहीं हुई, हमें ग्लूकोज नहीं चढ़ाया. So that is the perception of the people regarding the ORS. Sometimes there is palatability issues. Okay, the child doesn't accept the taste, so there is no option otherwise. Sometimes antibiotic misuse, people think that we are giving antibiotics, diarrhea will be controlled, there is no use of giving ORS. So this also is happening in clinics. Commercial versus homemade confusion is there. If commercial is not available, the homemade solution can be hyper or hypoosmolar, and then the results may vary. But sometimes, yes, ORS is not available, or there's nothing to be given. So should we wait for the stools to stop themselves, or what should we do? We should give alternatives at that time. Homemade sugar salt solution is the best. How is it prepared? 1 liter of water, adding 6 teaspoons of sugar and half teaspoon of salt. It will solve the problem. Giving it as per the ORS, we have to give it. Otherwise, we can take clear soups. We can give these to children. Coconut water is also equally good. Buttermilk, rice water, plain water will also go. But still, the parents, they should be encouraged to visit the pediatrician or a doctor to assess whether dehydration is being corrected properly or not, because sometimes these solutions can be hyperosmolar or hypoosmolar, and then they can lead to hyponatremic or hypernatremic dehydration as well. So that needs to be taken care of. But what is not ORT? What is not oral rehydration therapy? Fruit juices are not oral rehydration. We cannot replace ORS with fruit juices. We cannot replace them with sports drinks. Not soda water, not diet colas, and not the fake ORS which are being marketed as ORS. So there are many brands which are marketing it as an ORS solution, but in reality they are not ORS. They contain a lot of sugar. They are making it palatable so that it gets sold and the people take it, but it's causing more harm than good. So we need to educate people to be aware of these drinks. So taking into account the barriers of ORS, the government of India has been fighting a lot. Zinc plus ORS is being invented. The ORS zinc combination kits are being provided to be more effective. Flavored versions are also being developed, like apple flavor, orange flavor. So we have all these flavors nowadays, which are uh, going with the WHO ORS compositions. Rice-based ORS, so using rice instead of glucose as a carbohydrate source, as a co-transporter source, also is helping. It mainly helps in the cases of cholera. And AI-enabled outreach. So it's the era of AI-enabled outreach to people is being developed. So social media messages, targeted messaging is there on Facebook and all these social media platforms. The ORS awareness campaigns have been launched by the government of India. So my clinical takeaways are that ORS is still the first prescription in diarrhea. We should start it as early, within hours of the appearance of diarrhea, and we should give it as often as possible. And it's our duty as doctors to empower our caregivers for this solution. So yeah, it's as a tool of for empowerment, not just a treatment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meenakshi. A great presentation, and now we have a fair idea of the importance of ORS. And whatever you said, we cannot re-emphasize enough. ORS is important. ORS is a lifesaver. But ma'am, we have many questions, and if we can take them one by one.
Sure.
One comment coming from Dr. Suneet Kumar from Panchkula, and he says that, ma'am, this mechanism that you have mentioned, glucose and sodium working together, glucose helping the absorption of sodium across the intestinal epithelium. We see a similar situation in diabetes actually in the kidney, and we are using the exact opposite. We are using sodium glucose co-transporter inhibitors to manage
Mhm.
diabetes, but it means the physiology is the same in the kidney as well as in the intestine. So thank you, ma'am, for creating this insight for us. This insight is important because it will help many of our doctors understand the importance of sodium glucose working together. It is possible that the doctor may be finding it difficult to motivate the family to take ORS, but then you might want to use an example like, in diabetes also the same mechanism is being used in diabetes treatment. So why don't you use the same for your baby? And this might help motivate some families which otherwise would not be convinced about ORS. Uh, there's a question from the audience, ma'am. We see gaps in its usage across certain regions. So, in your population, in the population that you see, is there a specific subset of families that do not accept ORS? Maybe the rich ones, the educated ones, or do you think it's acceptance or lack of acceptance is the same across all social strata?
So in my area, acceptance is equally good as the lower strata as well as the upper strata. They are aware about the ORS benefits. Might be because of the social media, because everybody is on social media and a lot of awareness is being created. A lot of influencers are there nowadays, so they are aware of ORS. But still, writing only ORS will not satisfy them. We need to give some probiotics because as though we know probiotics also help in diarrhea, but there's no substitution for ORS. So they need other things in prescription as well apart from ORS because they say that ये तो हम घर पे दे रहे हैं. So anything else which you want to add. So this is the main problem.
So when they say we are already giving this, then two things. First, we can change the mode of delivery or the delivery device for ORS. O will be oral, but maybe different packagings, different flavors, like you said, apple and orange flavor. So, ma'am, in your practice, what has made the greatest difference? Someone comes to you and says, "I am already giving ORS." So, what would your counter be? Let me give you a better quality ORS or a better packaged ORS, or would it be let's learn together how to make the ORS and maybe let's make it more effective? So what kind of strategies do you follow in your practice?
So in my practice, but what I have observed commonly is that they are giving it, but they're not giving it in sufficient quantities because they don't know it's the exact quantity which is to be given. Like for every loose motion, they have to be given. Have to be giving 100 ml of ORS, but they are not giving that much. Just one spoon after one loose motion is their quantity. So I teach them about the quantity which needs to be given. If the child is in dehydration, what you need to do that you have to give it within 1 to 2 hours itna ORS. So that is the new insight which they come across. Then when there is a palatability issue, like my child is not accepting that packet wala powder wala ORS, so we have those flavored ORS options available as per WHO recommendations. We prescribe those things, and that really makes a lot of difference.
Thank you, ma'am, for this insight because this reminds us or it sort of encourages us to change the delivery device. The delivery mode may be using a Tetra Pak instead of using loose ORS. And at home also, it may be using a Barbie doll mug or maybe a Superman mug to give that 100 ml to the child who needs ORS. You might want to give 1/4 of a big mug. Let's give you a Papa mug or a Mama mug. And the child may like that, and after 2 hours, the child may change his mood, and then he or she will say, I want my own mug, which is the small sized mug. So these are different ways of sort of changing the delivery device. And try with your child sometimes opaque glasses and other times, see-through glasses. So let the child also choose. Now, ORS will remain the same, but you can always give the child a choice. This is what person-centered care is. So, beta, would you like your ORS in a see-through cup or in an opaque glass? So these are different ways of getting the child to be an active participant in his or her treatment. So, ma'am, these kind of things, how do you use them? And you've also successfully brought up multiple tigers. So anything that you remember from your clinical practice or from your practice at home, taking care of naughty tigers, how you've been able to use this democratic approach to treatment.
So yes, you were right. Changing the delivery device do help. Like for girls, we can bring them the pink colored cups, and they are so fascinated. Somehow, it is an inborn thing that they are so fascinated with the pink color. With the pink cup, they accept. And for boys, we can rightly say that the Superman cup or those cartoons for both boys and girls, they will work like cartoon based cups. So the delivery devices, they do help a lot. And again, those flavored ORS packets, Tetra packs, they also help a lot. So yeah, the problems are encountered, but they are then tackled.
Yeah. And you can always associate ORS with tiger. So we'll never forget now, International Tiger Day and International ORS Day are the same. So you can always use a tiger analogy. So let's take a tiger drink. Don't call it ORS. You just call it a tiger drink and then see the impact. Ma'am, a question coming from Mr. Faraz. He says, any precautions that we should take in neonates? Is ORS safe in neonatal age group?
If it is causing dehydration, we have to give ORS in them also, but then we need to take care of the hygiene, proper hygiene. The water should be boiled and cooled, and the utensils should also be clean, and only then we can give ORS. But yes, we have to give in neonates if they are having dehydration with us.
And we know that there are studies on this, but would you like to again reassure the audience? Let us say we give ORS to a neonate or to an infant who is otherwise on mother's feed. Does the mother's feed have to be stopped in diarrhea, or do we continue mother's feed and ORS together?
So yes, all the studies they have said that mother feed has to be continued, even if it is mild dehydration, moderate dehydration. Loose stools are very frequent. We have to continue the breast milk, even if the baby is on formula feed. We have to continue with that formula feed, and there is no need to shift to the formula make, like no lactose free or low lactose formula is needed, unless and until it is a prolonged diarrhea or we are suspecting a secondary lactose intolerance. So feeding should be continued as before.
Ma'am, a situation may come, let us say in crisis, maybe a natural disaster. The baby is sick and the mother is also sick. And that creates a huge challenge for the pediatrician, for the family doctor, for everybody actually, for the healthcare system. So, ma'am, any insights regarding this? You have a family that is sick. A family has got acute gastroenteritis. How do you sort of manage roles and responsibilities? How do you do a triage?
So because if mother is sick, but still she has to take care of her baby, and breastfeed also is to be given. So the less the member which has less tasks to do regarding the baby, they can help first himself or herself, and then the mother and the baby. So mother and the baby, they need extra care because they are doing extra work, and such type of family, they should be under the healthcare supervision. They can't be treated as at home. So under healthcare supervision, the uh, less occupied member should be taking care more for the other members. That only I can help.
And this is a call to everyone that it is not just the mother who is a parent. There is another parent which biology has given, which evolution has given, and that is the father. And he should take equal responsibility for the child. And because the etiology of acute gastroenteritis is usually infectious, there are chances that other people in the family may get diarrhea or they may have had. So the father should take equal responsibility and try to help out his wife and the baby as well. So that is something we should encourage, not only person-centered care, but family-centered care. So, ma'am, we have spoken about neonates. What about severely malnourished people, people with acute kidney injury? You did mention what are the indications for intravenous therapy, but let's look at it from an adult medicine point of view. Anybody who has got acute kidney injury, a renal shutdown, oliguria, that person should be an oliguria with persistent vomiting. That person should be given an IV drip. So, ma'am, can you tell us the rules for pediatrics? When do we diagnose oliguria, and at what urine output do we wake up and say that yes, now we must start a drip?
Yeah, when the urine output is reduced to less than 1 ml per kg per hour, that is when we take it as oliguria, and then we need to start with IV. and then shift to ORS whenever we can. So that is the rule in pediatrics regarding oliguria.
And ma'am, would it be a hard and fast rule? Now, 1 ml per kg. 4 days ago, my patient was weighing 12 kg, doing well and weighing 12 kg. In the last 1.5 days, suddenly from 12 kg, the child has gone down to 10.1 kg. So, do I really have to count that 10.1, or do I just take a rough estimate? Yes, patient is not passing 12 ml per hour, so let me move ahead and give the drip.
In those cases, we need to go out with the rough estimates only.
Yeah.
So it's not always possible that we are able to calculate in ml per kg per hour. So rough estimates are also helpful, and then we will see other signs of dehydration as well. Because if there is oliguria, there will be other signs and symptoms which will be present. So on that basis, we can assess.
Ma'am, like you already said, a holistic approach towards diagnosing the level of dehydration or the stage of dehydration. Don't go by just one aspect, just by urine output. Ma'am, there is a comment from nephrology from Dr. Saurabh Sharma, who says that he's a professor at Safdarjung in New Delhi, and he says that we are working on reno-friendly ORS. So this is reno-friendly ORS is where you keep the potassium slightly lower so that you can give it to people with chronic kidney disease, and children also do get chronic kidney disease. But he asks another question: standard ORS and low osmolarity ORS. You mentioned that ORS has evolved, the formula has also evolved. So, are there specific situations where we would still need standard ORS, and others where we would prefer low osmolarity ORS?
If it is hyponatremia is there, we can use the standard ORS in those cases. But otherwise, the standard is the low osmolarity only nowadays. We are using that only, and that only is available all the all, and everywhere. And the standard ORS we can use, but if the high sodium levels are normal, there is no other indication. We have to use this. Low osmolarity ORS only, because otherwise the child would land up into hypernatremic dehydration, and then it will cause a lot of problems thereafter.
So, thank you, ma'am. It's been great being with you, and so many new things that I've learned. Uh, I have learned one thing, which is the term is a tiger solution. So, if you have a child or a mother or a family which resists ORS, you change the name, you call it a tiger brand, tiger solution, and then you see how things work out. And for whoever is resisting, you tell them that this ORS is going to make you a tiger. And actually, is this true, ma'am? The child's voice comes back, the baby's cry comes back when you give them ORS, and they're able to cry louder and complain louder. Does it happen in the OPD?
It happens. It does happen. It does happen.
And then you tell them that this cry or complaint is thanks to the tiger solution. So we are happy that it has made you roar like a tiger. With this, ma'am, I'd like to thank you a lot. We have Faraz who takes care of us on this show. So Faraz, if you could welcome you back, your comments, and then we request ma'am to conclude.
Sir, like as we know that, sir, ORS is a very common things we see every day. Like if there is any dehydration, we prescribe ORS. But being very cheap, but still the usage are very less. People are not using much. So my comment will be like as this we come in Dr. KK Arula's platform to create a awareness among the people. Like we can use it, and it is better for our health. So I hope the presentation ma'am have given was very impactful and knowledgeful. I hope it will be going to create an impact in all the audience, sir. It was a very great show from your end, sir. Like you have hosted it. I hope that it will be again give a good knowledge to the society, sir. That's it.
Thank you. Final comments, ma'am, before we conclude.
So my message to everyone out there is that don't underestimate the power of this tiger, the ORS. So use it liberally and use it wherever you can, because it is not just a solution; it's a lifesaver sometimes. That's it.
So, as we save tigers and the entire world works towards saving our fauna and flora both, and we are being successful now, we are able to save the Indian tiger. Similarly, let's say save each and every tiger, each and every child that we have. And ORS would be the simplest and the strongest way to do that in acute diarrheal disease. With this, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for us. Thanks everyone for joining. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time and ma'am for sharing this insightful knowledge on this topic. We would like to see you in future also with different topic. Till then, take care of yourself. Thank you. We are closing for today.